All right, that looks like we're a minute after the hour. Um, Again, another small group today. I'm going to keep the mics muted just to avoid some background noise. I was picking up on my recordings, but feel free to type any questions into the question box or into the chat box. And again, I'll be posting this onto YouTube a few hours following the end of the webinar. So today, we're just going to look at paving and hardscape tools, get an introduction into those. We'll probably run about 20-30 minutes today. Uh, a lot of the principles and theories behind the paving module are similar to SoftWorks. So you'll have a familiar interface. Dealing with databases is very familiar. It's just that you're dealing with bricks and blocks instead of trees. So I think we can speed through this a little bit faster today. I also want to touch on creating patterns at the end of the demo, but we'll probably have to have another webinar just focusing on more complex patterns because that gets a little bit trickier and more in-depth. So here we have the just a template drawing I've created just to play around in and really get a feel for the paving module. So just like every Keyscape project, I'm going to go to core, check and make sure that my drawing's set up the way I want. I'm going to be working in feet today. That's great. It's just doing a little bit of processing there. Just in case I had changed the units, it would have readjusted some of my paving patterns. If I move over to the paving module, you'll see it looks kind of like SoftWorks. On the left side, we have some construction tools, so just like Polyline, boundary polyline, construction lines, leaders. These are all just kind of generic drafting tools. They're already AutoCAD commands, but just kind of a shortcut. You don't have to go back to your home ribbon and find them. They're just right there. And it's probably a good time to point out the power of using polylines in your construction when you're drawing outlines, you're laying out sidewalks or paving areas or any geometry really. Polylines, I think, are much more dynamic. Drawing with closed polylines ensures that your drafting is a little bit tighter. When you're trying to determine a boundary, you're not messing with endpoints and trying to reconnect things. So I always try to draw with polylines, or if I draw with lines, I'll try to join lines together to create polylines using the p-edit command. Let's zoom in a little bit here and just look at some of the different objects we can create with paving. So first off, we have, moving from the left to the right, is edging. So that can be based on a polyline boundary. It can be based on an existing paving area. Basically, it's to create an object like this. This one is just made with bricks. We've laid out this dimensional brick. We've given it a spacing as well. And we've assigned some specifications to it as well. Next over is paving. And paving is more of filling an area. Here I have some samples. I just filled a circle with some different paving patterns. This could be something as complex as these modular unit paving patterns. It could be a brick like a herringbone or a running bond or any pattern you might define. It could also be a continuous surface. So up here I've just created some boundaries. If I click on one here, I've tagged this area as bituminous asphalt. And so it doesn't have to be fancy. This can just be used for takeoffs. It can be used for, even without the patterns enabled, this may be a hatched area and you just want to get a square footage off that and get it pulled into a schedule automatically. that might be one used for paving. The other type of paving area is the pathway. And it's a bit of a combination of the two others, where it's based on a center line alignment. So this is an example of one without a pattern. It's just a continuous concrete path. I laid it out using a center line, which I'll demonstrate more in depth here in a moment. And then it's bounded by this closed polyline based on those offsets. So it follows a path like an edging does, but it also fills an area like a paving area does. And we'll get into that here in one moment. Again, moving from left to right across the toolbar here, we run into the specification area. This is very much the same as in SolidWorks, where you're able to modify styles, change the information that shows up in your labels. This is one I've created. Let's just make sure that's saved before I start messing with it. The standard that comes in with Keysoft by default has number of bricks, a description, some pattern information, and some takeoffs. I've created one here called product style. I've just added a few more fields. I've got texture and finish because some of these paving areas I've assigned manufacturer data to. Again, there's all these different attributes you can insert into a label in any order that you want for any type of project you want. And you can change all the text options and sizes and shapes and leader types down here. Let's click apply. Let's close that. Moving to the right, we have insert schedule into the schedule tools, just like in SolidWorks. Here I've inserted a schedule with the fields that I think are important to me. Again, it's exactly like editing a schedule style in SolidWorks. Instead of having trees and shrubs and herbaceous, you have paving, edging, and paths. And then moving on, we have find objects. Works just the same as in SolidWorks. Database manager. The buttons look familiar here. They work a little bit differently. If I click on database manager, it's a lot simpler. Used to have basically 5 fields here. First one is type of material. So if it's something as simple as brick, maybe you don't have a specific manufacturer you want to specify, or maybe you do. These are all editable by clicking on the ellipsis, and then you can add a new manufacturer, as much detail as you want here. I have filled out a few of these. I've built out some custom concrete unit pavers. I have a couple manufacturers. Some of these are preloaded. I created a new Unilock manufacturer. I put in 2 of their product lines. Some of their textures, I think actually Beacon Hill has more, a couple options for textures and options for colors. This is all up to the end user to build out what you prefer to work with. We do have some samples in here for learning for template use, but we really leave it up to the end user to create the custom specifications that they care about and they like to specify in their projects. The other part of Database Manager is, if I hit the pull down, is the Pattern Manager. And that's how we create new paving areas, new edging and path patterns as well. And we'll touch on that in a bit towards the end of the presentation. Another good tool is the clipping options. This is good on bigger projects where processing, hundreds of feet of pathway or thousands of square foot of different pavings may start to impact the performance of your machine. This is an example of a clip here where I had a brick path laid out showing every single brick to achieve that pattern. Down here I've just isolated a circle. I'm still getting the same takeoff because all these bricks are here. They're just hidden, which can help the performance on your machine. If I move this circle to a different area, it's going to show the paving in that area. So it's good for your detail sheets, things like that. So let's dive in a little deeper to some of these menus and create some paving areas. I'm going to use this irrigation design template. It's just a little residential lot that I like to use for irrigation projects, but it will probably be good for this type as well. Let's freeze off a few layers that we might not really care about right now. I'm just going to go home and go to freeze. I'm going to turn off my site boundary, and I'm going to turn off my water main and freeze off that meter. I don't really care about that. So I have, this front drive. I've got a walkway. I've got a front stoop. I've got a rear, it could be a deck, could be a patio. I've got a boundary around the edge here that might be a gravel edging around the house, and we probably want to call all those out. So let's go into paving, and let's add a paving area for the front drive. So we probably don't want this to go out into the street, into the public domain. I'm going to go ahead and just draw a polyline, this PL, and just close off the end of my drive where it meets the street return, or the curb return. Now I'm going to go up to Add Paving. I move this off to the side so we can see the drawing at the same time. So if I have a closed polyline, I can just do Select Area. If I don't have a closed polyline, but I know that my drafting's good, there's not too many gaps, I can try From Boundary. So I'm just going to click inside of that drive, and you can see with the white line it determined that boundary successfully. If I had an island, I could subtract that here. Moving down, we have appearance options. So this is where patterns come into play. If this was brick, we might go in here and pick a brick pattern. If we click on that, we see how that comes up. I want this just to be a continuous pattern though. Let's just call it an asphalt drive. So here it says continuous surface, nothing's defined here. And I'm just going to call this with a short description. And you can call this anything you want to. You can type any description you want here, or you can leave it blank and just leave it up to the specification options. So let's click specification. Again, here are those items we created in the database. So this is bituminous. It's not really a manufacturer. That's just something you have the contractor do. You might have a detail that shows, the depths, the sub base. You can specify that stuff here. Under foundations, we have a few items you can fill out if you want. Bedding depth, base course depth, base course type, reinforcement. These aren't going to show up unless you tell the schedule to display them. Let's just say we have, a 3-inch. Let's just call it base course. And under that, maybe we have 6 inches of coarsely graded gravel and no reinforcement. Again, this is all optional stuff. If you're displaying this in a detail, you might not need to show this here. If you are using this information to go out to Revit, which some of our a lot of our larger firms are needing to collaborate with your architect in Revit, that might be something you want to include here. All right, so we have a continuous surface. We've selected the area. We've given it some details. Let's click OK. And now we're prompted to place a specification label and draw a leader, just as if we were doing the same with a piece of plant material. This is the info that it's looking for in this drawing. If I wanted to use the label I was using in the other drawing, I can go to Modify Styles. I'm going to import that spec style that I saved, or that I exported from the other drawing, import it into this drawing. Click Close. And now I need to change this one over, so I'm going to set style to the labels I've already drawn. Select that label, hit enter, and let's use my product style. So it's a little more simplified. It just gives me the information I care about. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with my schedule. I'm going to actually need to export that as well. So let me jump back here. Let me go to my Modify Styles, and let's see here. Okay, it's called Key Paving Nate. I'm going to export that as Key Paving. Oh, it's already here. Great. I'll just override it to make sure it's the latest and greatest, what I wanted. Cancel. Now move back over to my drawing. I'm going to bring in that schedule style. So I go to Modify Schedule, Import, and grab Key Paving Nate. Great, that's in the drawing now. Just want to insert a schedule. I can choose which one I want, Nate or Standard. Again, this is very similar to SOFTWORKS. Let's call this Paving Takeoffs. I'm going to put that over here. Great. So we have one paving area. It's a continuous surface, and there's my square footage. Now let's continue another paving area, and let's work on, let's do this back porch here. I want to do an offset of this porch because I want to put an edging on it as well. I want to do a paving area with an edging around it. So first thing I'm going to do is join these lines together. You can see that they're all individual lines. And I really want to get a boundary that has a closed polyline. So let's go back to the Home menu. I'm going to make current this, it's called LEOP. It's just a layer I created just for edge of pavement. I'm going to draw a polyline to finish off this area. I have my snaps set on endpoints, so I know that I'm clicking to the end of the lines. These are still disjoined though, so I want to do a polyline edit command. That's PE or P-edit, or there's also a button at the top. Select polyline or multiple. I'm going to do multiple, so I just type M, and let's get those 4 polylines selected. Hit enter. Convert lines to polylines. Yes. Now I want to do J for join. Fuzz distance is 0 because I know I used endpoint, so I don't need it to connect Fuzz is just if you're off, it draws little segments between your endpoints. Hit enter, close the polyline with C, and then hit enter again to close the command. So now we have a closed polyline. I'm going to do an offset command, which is here, or just type O. I want to offset this, let's just say, let's just do 8 inches, which is, this is if drawing in feet, so let's do a 0.6667, like that. So I'm going to do a field of paving here with an edging around it. And we probably don't want that edging against the house, so let's stretch this down like that. Okay, back to paving. Let's add a paving area. I already have my closed polyline, so I can just hit select, grab that area, delete source object. That's up to you. If what it will do is take these construction lines and hide them. I'm just going to keep mine intact for now. Pattern options, I want to do a brick pattern. Let's do say a herringbone pattern. These are in metric here, but we can create new ones if we like based on paving patterns or brick sizes that we know, and we'll get to that here in a moment. But let's just pick something that works, that looks all right. And the specification I'm going to leave blank for now. We'll come back and add that data once we have it the way we like it to look. I'm going to hit preview, and it's going to lay that out for me the best that it can based on a starting out point that it just assumed. But let's go back to the dialog. I hit enter, and let's do a setting out point, and let's have it start from this corner here, and the angle is fine. Let's keep it at 0 so it's orthogonal with the house. Click OK, and then click preview, and you can see the pattern shifted a bit, which on the herringbone pattern, maybe that's not as big of a deal. It's never going to fit exactly. If it was a traditional coursing, that might be more critical. So let's go just back to running bond. We'll pick the same size block. Click OK and click preview. And so there's the best fit it can do on that block. Let's click OK. We can place a label if we want to and draw a leader to it. Now we want to edge this patio with the same brick but in a different like a soldier row or along the edge there. Let's go to edging and add. And here I want to select paving just to show you what that does. So I don't have to have a boundary line, I just have to have an existing piece of paving. I go to my pattern. So now I'm looking at edging. So I'm going to go click on a few of these. We can see we have some different patterns. Some of these are more complex than others. They have multiple courses. Let's do something like that. Yeah, see the header. Click OK. Let's preview that now. And so what we did is surrounded that entire area. It went into the house because we didn't tell it not to, so we'll fix that here in a moment. We've also got some corner issues, and we can fix that as well by setting the dominance of what edge has precedent in those corners. So let's hit enter to return to the dialog. We'll set dominance, and that's how if you want a mitered corner, if you want a butted corner, if you want to leave it blank, you can do that. Let's do a mitered corner. Click OK. Let's preview that again. And there now it solved these corners using a 45-degree angle. All right, that's fine. We'll hit OK. And again, we place a leader if we'd like. And the whole time we're getting this stuff added to our schedule. So now we have a new category. We have the brick that's come in the paving category along with the bituminous. Then we have a new category called edging, and that takeoff is based on linear feet. So this area is not really what I wanted, or this edging. I didn't want it to overlap the building here. So let's just erase that. Let's start over again. Let's look at this polyline I drew. It's closed still. I really only need 3 edges though. So let's explode it, and then let's rejoin the 3 sides that we want the edging to follow. I'm also going to do a drawing order command, which is DR, or draw order, and send this to back so that my red line pops to the front there. Now I'll do another P edit, M for multiple, grab these 3, enter, convert to polyline, yes, and join. I don't want to close, because if I close it, it's going to draw this 4th side automatically, and I don't want that. So I'll just hit enter to complete the command. And now you can see I have those 3 sides connected into one object. So now back to edging, add edging. Instead of from paving, I'm going to do from polyline. Pattern options, let's go back to that same header course, and we'll call it brick edging. Let's set the dominance again to be the mitered. Okay, there we go. Now we have something a little bit more realistic, and we can see now I added that description, so we have an item here under edging. Let's double click on the paving area and add a description there as well. Click OK. Great, now our little takeoff table is getting a little bit more interesting. Let's go through the 3rd tool, the pathway tool, and let's do this walkway from the bituminous drive up to the front porch. The thing I'm missing here is a center line. So I need a center line so it knows how to align my bricks as I'm turning that corner. First thing I'm going to do is a distance command. DI is a shortcut for distance. You can also find this in the home ribbon. I'm just going to measure across here. So that's a 4-foot path. The center line would be 2, so I'll just do an offset. So O for offset. Offset distance is 2. I'm going to grab one of these polylines and snap it there. Now I also want to bound this area so it knows where to stop the paving. So I'm going to draw a couple more polylines. Close off that end. Close off that end. Excuse me. Now we have some overlapping lines here. It's a bit tough to see what we're doing. So I'm just going to grab all of my geometry here and let's just copy it. Let's do CO, copy. Let's copy it over here to work on it. Again, I'm going to P-edit multiple lines into one closed polyline. join, 0 fuzz distance, and C for close, enter. Now we have a closed polyline. If you ever want to double check and make sure your polyline is closed, you can find that if you go to View, Properties. The Properties window is going to tell you, yes, this is a polyline, and at the very bottom it's going to say, is it closed? Yes. Let me close that for some more real estate. Okay, back to paving. We're going to add a paving area. We're going to select the path boundary first from area. So that's the boundary. No, I want to keep my geometry. And then pattern path, that is the center line length that I drew. And that's so it knows how to transition on a serpentine or curvilinear pathway. Pattern options, again, let's do a simple brick. Let's try this one. It's got a bit of a grout line or a spacing between it. We'll call this brick path. And again, if we wanted to, we could assign specifications, foundation information, joint type as well. So say we have a flexible joint and we want that to be specified at 1/8 of an inch, or sorry, 3/8 of an inch. Let's preview that. So it looks pretty good. You can see we have some half bricks here. So using this brick size, we might want to make our path a little bit wider so we don't end up having to chop a bunch of bricks. We could also offset this in a bit and then do an edging, a different pattern as well. Let's just keep what we have. Click OK. And then there's that paving area. So let's move that back in place now that we have that created. I'm just going to put a little circle here as a base point. Let me erase this other geometry and then move this back there. Now we can see we have the third category coming in on our takeoff. That's the brick path. That area, or that takeoff, is an area as well. And we have an approximate number of blocks that it's displaying, which I kind of forgot to mention. It gives you a number of blocks. It does not account for half blocks. It always, so for example, these blocks here on the edge that are chopped, it's not considering that you might chop those in half and then recycle the other half to use on the next, as the next brick. It's a good estimate tool. It's definitely not exact, and you probably wouldn't want that exact of a specification anyway when you're communicating to the contractor, because things are always going to be a bit different in the field. So the area takeoff is probably more valuable than the actual number of bricks. But it is just a good general estimating tool. So we've went through the 3 styles of paving areas. We've looked at specification and schedules. Those are very similar to what we're seeing in Softworks. So if you need to brush up on those, we have some other videos regarding specifications and schedules. Let's create a new brick based on a size we might encounter more here in the US. So I'm going to go to Pattern Manager, and this is where I can create new objects. It can be complex, they can be simple bricks. There's a lot of options. I'm going to focus on simple bricks, and we'll go into more advanced patterns at a later webinar. So I want to do, let's just start with a simple running bond block. which is just means you know, a square or rectangular type of unit. Let's click New, and let's define that based on some dimensions. So I'll just call this webinar brick. Again, it's a block. It's running bond. It's an 8-inch by 4-inch brick. Depth you can specify if you prefer. It's called 2.5-inch depth, and the spacing will do the 375 joint. Click OK, and we can see at the bottom of the list that's come in as webinar brick. So let's use that brick now for our patio. I'm going to go back here. I can either double click on this area, or I can go modify and then click the area. Pattern options. Let's scroll down to my new webinar brick. Click OK and click OK. There you can see the dimensions were slightly different on that, probably because of the grout line I specified. So we have a new estimated number of bricks, and we have a new entry down here. It's saying the pattern I'm using is webinar brick. Let's now look at you know, modifying areas using the find objects command. This works very similar to plant material. I hit enter for all. You can see these are all of the items I have in the drawing. I have 3 without specification, which means I haven't tied manufacturer data to them. So if that's critical to the project, I can click on that, click find, and then it's zooming into each instance of undefined specification. So the last thing I want to show before I answer a few questions that have popped up is the clip. And clip, again, is good for isolating areas where you don't necessarily want to show the entire thing all at once. Let's draw a boundary around what we want to show. So it might just be maybe the corner of this patio is enough to convey the intent to the contractor. So let's just draw a circle. It could also be a rectangle or any shape, really. Let's create a clip, and I want it to be that circle. And then let's apply that clip to that. Apply clip to that. Oh, sorry, I have to select the boundary first. I want this boundary applied to that edging and to that area. So now all those takeoffs are still accurate. You can see when I click on it, we still have the grips around the edges. So it's still there, it's just hiding the geometry. Same thing with the edging. If I edit these grips, say I want to manually make this paving area smaller, I can do that, and it's going to update in real time. Clip options, there's a few other options here for when you're laying out your sheets. If you want to use the clip only in layout, then I deselect model space, click OK. So now it's going to show my paving area is complete here, but it's not going to show the whole thing in my paper space layout. I can do the same thing with my edging as well. All right, let's see here. I got a few questions I want to address before we wrap up today. If steps are brick, do we need to do each tread. It's really up to you how detailed you want to get with it. Steps would probably be done as a paving area, and I would probably do each tread individually. If the risers are brick as well, those aren't going to be accounted for. This is more of a 2D tool at this point, but you could use it as a graphic tool. So let's say we do add a paving area from boundary. Let's click on one of these treads. Let's click a pattern option. Let's do a stacked bond, something like that. Okay, let's preview that. So that's going, parallel with the tread. We might want to change the setting out. Let's change setting out. We're going to start it from that edge, and the angle is going to follow that direction, 90 degrees. Click OK. Let's preview that. So now we have our brick course. I won't place a label now, but I can then clone that. Yes. And now I can pick areas to clone this to. I don't have areas defined here, so I'd have to go through and create closed polylines for each step. Or if I just wanted to get a general idea, and I knew that I had the spacing of these bricks corresponding to the riser or to the tread depth, I could, just get an estimate using something like that. But there's a couple options there. Again, you have to know the size of brick you're dealing with when you're laying out the tread. Same thing with edging. You want to have a general idea. If you're using an 8-inch brick, you want to offset things 8 inches. So there's a little bit of layout involved. But I think that this tool really conveys the design intent much better than, say, just a generic hatch pattern. It gives you a really nice takeoff, whether you're using it just for concrete areas, paving areas, gravel areas, decomposed granite paths, or you're doing complex brick patterns or modular unit patterns. Another question we have is, will we be adding more imperial-sized blocks? Yeah, that's one of our goals in this next development cycle, is to get more imperial patterns. These are all laid out in millimeters, and that's kind of the native way that Keyscape works. We just need to build out these libraries, give a few options. We'll be looking at that this year and possibly adding some downloads to our website with things like, let me go back to the paving drawing I had going. So things like this, we could have a library of blocks that we could bring in from a palette. So you could have let's go to AutoCAD's palettes. That's under View and Tool Palettes. Tool palettes are basically custom libraries of blocks you can develop as you see fit. What I've done in the past is I've created a new palette just called Paving Patterns, and then you're able to drag and drop into your drawing as you need a different pattern. You don't have to specify it all manually. That's something I'll get into when we do an advanced paving pattern webinar, to learn how to lay out things like these type of patterns where they appear random, but there is a tessellation, there is a repeating pattern. Then to finish up let's look at Hardworks really quickly. Hardworks is really a block library. What we have here is a library of symbols. A lot of these have plan, elevation, and 3D views. There's a couple libraries here. What we've done is, as most of you know, we've combined the best of Keyscape with the best of LandCAD, and we're continuing to modernize and integrate LandCAD more seamlessly. Some of these tools over here on the right, like Site Furniture, brings up the old LandCAD block library, which you have full access to as well. So some 3D blocks here, some plan view blocks as well. These are all customizable. If you do want to dive into it, we can touch on that in an advanced webinar as well. But Keyscape application data on your hard drive is where all this stuff is stored. If I go to Key Hardworks symbols, you can see we have a hierarchy of folders. So benches have 3D, elevation, plan view. If I go to plan view, you can see that these are just AutoCAD drawings. They're really just blocks. So we can really add anything we want to as long as they're individual blocks. But again, that's more of an advanced modification of Keyscape. So with that, it looks like we've gone about 48 minutes, so a little bit longer than I anticipated. Thanks for hanging in there with me. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, nate@keysoftsolutions.com. Give us a call. Our number's on the support page, support.keysoftsolutions.com, and I'll be uploading this to YouTube shortly for anybody to review. Thanks. Talk to you soon.